Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm coming to you with another new episode, and today we're going to talk about the hidden roots of our relationship with food. And we're going to talk about how our childhood experiences influence our relationship with food, our relationship with eating, our relationships with our bodies. And we're just going to address something that maybe isn't addressed enough, which is developing attitudes, opinions, judgments, beliefs about eating, about food, about our bodies at such a young age that we're not even really old enough or mature enough in our brain development to even recognize that we're making them, which is kind of a cool thing as far as taking some of that responsibility or that feeling of dread or even shame that we have around perhaps some ways that we behave towards eating or react towards our bodies. It can really give us a sense of self-compassion to look at this and to explore this topic, because it really allows us to zoom out and realize that a lot of ways that we behave and a lot of ways that we move through the world aren't always our fault per se. However, it is our responsibility to heal those and to heal those things if they're not working for us or if they're just not skillful and they don't help us become the best versions of ourselves. And that responsibility is something that can be empowering. And so I want to address and just explore this topic today as a pathway, as a means to feeling empowered, because something that I have really taken on as a value in my own life is to look at negative things, to look at dark areas, to look at ugly things or failures or like things that we're kind of not wanting to look at about ourselves or see, things that maybe we would shove under the rug. I have a really strong just interest in leaning into those types of things and really allowing the dark places and the places that maybe we want to keep hidden or not want to look at, allow those places to be the magic, to be the impetus for healing. And I think that looking at this requires us to maybe admit that we don't have great behaviors towards food or behavior towards eating. It might even cause us to look at some of the ways that we were brought up and some of the narratives, some of the beliefs, some of the ways that maybe we don't want to look at our upbringing that way, because maybe it will uncover or just bring up some negative feelings we maybe don't want to feel. But I think it's really important to actually explore this not as a blame game situation, but just as an opportunity to provide context and to provide compassion, and above all, to really offer an opportunity for change, right? A place where we can practice forgiveness, practice empathy, and maybe let go of some of these things that maybe we subconsciously have been holding on to that have been impacting our goals. So let's get into it. I think that was a nice intro, a nice intro. So let's get into it, because when we're talking about our weight, when we're talking about eating, when we're talking about wanting to get in control of our hunger, our appetite, it's never really just about the number on the scale. It's really about how we've been taught to think about food, think about our bodies. And it's really, like I said, the lessons that we've absorbed long before we even know that we were learning them. So if you think back to your childhood, think back to your earliest memories around food, what were they like? right? Everyone has their own experience with it, right? There's, maybe your family struggled to keep the fridge stocked. Maybe food was always a source of comfort. Or perhaps it was even some more subtle, right? Maybe there was enough food, but it was often emphasized that you shouldn't waste food. You shouldn't throw out food. You have to finish every last bite because, there are people starving or who knows, right? Maybe they're just these overt and also nuanced messages that we receive. These seemingly small everyday messages, these specifically, they're whispers of scarcity, right? They're feelings of pressure, right? Where it takes away the pleasure of eating because you're kind of in your head thinking about consequences rather than your own experience, which is about enjoyment. And this is that first crux where you disconnect from yourself. And that's why food is so interesting as a topic, why eating is so interesting as a topic, because disconnection from yourself, that severing of your own ability to be in tune with your pleasure, with your senses, with your inner experience, because you're too focused on something outward, this is the root. This is kind of like the initial horcrux of self-abandonment, which then can lead to other abandonments, which lead to coping mechanisms and, on and on and on that we talk about. And without realizing it, when it comes to food specifically and the way we look at our bodies specifically, it can become the way that we experience our relationship with eating and food and our relationship with our bodies in our adult lives. So I know this personally. I grew up with a very complicated relationship with food. And, I didn't just wake up one day and decide that I needed to control my body. I knew that it was something deeper, right? I knew that what I wanted to heal wasn't just, there was something more that I was looking for. The reason why I had a complicated relationship with food was because, and the reason why I had a complicated relationship with my weight, it wasn't just simply about a number. It wasn't just simply about food. It was this feeling that I wouldn't be enough unless I was thin, right? I was a certain size clothing. I had this thing that I wouldn't be able to be seen. Like I wouldn't be accepted. I wouldn't get what I wanted. I wouldn't be able to experience the type of acceptance from the world unless I looked a certain way and my clothes fit me a certain way. When we're kids, our environment plays such a huge role in shaping how we view eating, how we view food. And like I said earlier, if you grew up in a home where meals were sometimes hard to come by, even if your family or like food was celebrated, right? Every time you went to a celebration, there was eating, right? So there's that scarcity mindset where maybe meals were hard to come by or like, you're not going to get this again and don't waste this because there are people out there that are hungry, things like that. And so you feel this pressure, this scarcity. There's the other side also where, food was always a symbol of celebration, right? It was always the thing that you did in order to bring good vibes, right? In order to show that you were enjoying, right? You had to eat to show that you were enjoying something in order to prove that you loved somebody, right? It's like you go to a family event and somebody has, somebody made food for you. They're like, oh, I know that you love this and here I made it for you. And what if you didn't want that? What if you didn't want to eat that then? There's this guilt. So we start to associate guilt. We start to associate leaving our bodies around eating, right? It's not about nourishment or, functional eating to be able to do our daily activities. It becomes this emotional heaviness. There's more to it. There's a weightedness to it. It's like, oh, I have to eat all this because because other people don't have this. I have to eat all this because I can't waste. I have to be a human garbage can. Oh, I have to eat this because my aunt made this for me or someone made this for me and I'm going to disappoint them if I don't eat this and I'm not going to be loved, right? It's like all of a sudden, all of these core needs that we have as human beings are wrapped up in our relationship with food, right? Feeling loved, feeling like you're a good person, right? Feeling like you're not a selfish person or you're not a bad person. There's all these things that all of a sudden are intertwined. And these are messages that we could get as children that we end up taking with us into our adult lives. And, to that point, like I said, it becomes where food is more than just nourishment. Like I said, it's a currency, right? It's a currency to show that you are in it, that you love it, that you like them, right? And they also take it that way. And this is kind of like a wounding thing altogether, which is why it's really important to heal this. But like I always say, you can't heal what you don't see. And so you have to see this. You have to be willing to say, yeah, that's not great. Like, I don't feel great when I go to a party and I always feel like I have to eat so much. Sometimes I just want to go to the party and I just want to hang and I just want to eat some things and listen to my hunger cues. And maybe I didn't show up hungry and that's okay. It's not like I didn't enjoy the party or fully give all my energy or fully didn't experience the joy of a celebration because I didn't eat everything. Our appetite shouldn't be currency. This is something that we need to start to look at. We need to start to understand that this isn't really a healthy thing. Okay, so when it comes to food and eating, we really want to start to take a look at some of these maybe subconscious, habitual, comfortable, almost things that we do so innately and so naturally that we don't even notice we're doing them, or we think that it's actually what we need to do, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go to this thing and I'm going to have to eat so much. And and you start planning around how you're going to respond to the consequences of the dynamics that you're going to have with this eating, rather than saying, oh, I don't even have to engage with the dynamics in this way at all. So seeing this in advance allows you to say, you know what, I don't have to do this. I don't have to be a human garbage can. I don't have to prove that I love somebody by using my appetite as currency. Okay, so you want to start doing that. And then when it comes to our bodies, okay, how our childhood and how the ways that we have been conditioned unconsciously, subconsciously by the environments that we were around, the way that our caregivers talk to us, right? So the way that our caregivers talk to us, but also the way they talk to themselves. Think about it. If you grew up in a house where you heard your mom or somebody, your dad, somebody, your older sibling, right? Any kind of adult figure saying, oh, I shouldn't eat that. I'll gain weight. Or this is, I need to lose a few pounds, or talking to yourself in a way that connects eating with a negative consequence that's going to impact your weight. And then energetically, you sense that consequence will create a negative life situation where you're going to feel bad in life, right? So as a kid, all you feel and all you absorb is, if you do this, you're going to get this, and this is bad. That's all we really can absorb. But we can connect that, oh, if I have this food, eating this isn't great because then I'm going to gain weight here, and then gaining weight leads to this negative thing. As children, we absorb these messages even if they weren't directed directly at us. We pick up on the self-criticism, we pick up on the judgment, we pick up on the fear of the food, or the connecting, the codependent relationship with food, the connecting the food to a consequence, kind of ignoring the nuance, and then that consequence being something that is going to lead to a negative experience in life, right? We pick up on that. And so it's like we inherit this mirror of how our caregivers or, adult figures viewed themselves. And suddenly we're not just learning how to eat. It's not just about food in front of us. We're taking in a narrative, we're taking in a dynamic, an emotional dynamic of how to feel about eating and how to feel about ourselves. And without awareness, right, without this willingness to look at these patterns that seem normal, I can't tell you how many clients I have that tell me stories in our sessions, this is the way it is, and I have to stop them and be like, that's not, like, you could pause there. Like you could rewire that pathway, actually. And they're like, no, but that's how it is. I'm like, no, that's how it has been taught to you and that's what you've been doing, but that's not how it is. There's a space here for you to redirect where this is going to go emotionally for you. I mean, it requires you to look critically at the pattern and say, oh, this isn't etched in stone. This is something that's just been kneaded in for a while, right? So it requires you to have to be curious, to be critical thinker, right? Not a critic, but a critical thinker. And then be willing to provide a compassionate lens to the situation and then take on the responsibility, which is, can be difficult, which is the work we do here, the work I do with everybody in my coaching programs with my clients, to realize that it is our responsibility to repattern and rewire and heal some of those unhealthy and unskillful narratives and dynamics. And if we don't, we carry these associations with us for decades, right? We can carry them for years, for decades. It can impact our self-esteem, our self-worth, our potential fullness of life without realizing it. It can influence and make its way into all these different ways that we show up in the world. And before we know it, we end up exploiting food as our coping mechanism. We turn into adults who overeat when we're stressed or feel guilty after indulging in something delicious or, something heavy. We go back to where we were as kids, where we disassociate ourselves from the experience because we're thinking about the consequences, right? So we find ourselves hoarding snacks, binging, right? Like compulsively, urgently eating, going back to that scarcity narrative, right? Like, oh my God, I might not have this again. Right? It's like unconscious. Like, why are we eating so much of this? We have the bag here, but it's unconscious until you make it conscious. And so if you've ever felt like food controls you, you don't understand your hunger cues, your fullness cues, or food is a source of anxiety or guilt, I want you to know this, that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are hundreds of people that listen to this podcast that can tell you you're not alone. I can tell you you're not alone because I have been there. And still, sometimes I hear the voices come up. So this is something also that's very interesting. Like, this isn't something that all of a sudden you heal and it goes away. Healing is being able to hear the voices and appreciate that you hear them, because hearing them means that you have created space from them and now you have a choice and now you can be empowered. That's what recovery is. That's what healing is. That's what the tools that we grow are. This isn't about willpower. It's not about being perfect with your diet. It's not about following a plan that gets you a result. This isn't just about results. This is about changing your life. This is about healing. This is about healing old patterns. You can't change a pattern by following a diet and getting a result like weight loss, right? Like, the weight loss isn't going to heal your pattern. To heal your pattern, you have to do this type of stuff. You have to go into the weeds. You have to look under the hood of the car. It's two separate things. They overlap, they go together, but in order to sustain a result like weight loss, you have to do this. Otherwise, you'll just be in the cycle over and over again, right? Because this is about rewiring your mind. It's about shifting away from the old stories and beliefs. And so how do we rewire our relationship with food, with the self-talk, the belief systems? It begins with awareness, begins with the willingness to see, to look. If you think about the messages you learned, whether they were about scarcity, whether they were about appetite as a currency for love, right? Showing that you're eating something, whether it was about celebrations mean that you indulge or guilt, whether they were from your parents to you, right? Directly at you, to you, or whether they were subconscious messages that you got from them talking about food or about their bodies to themselves. Think about the times when food was love, when eating was more than just fueling your body, but an emotional transaction, right? And then practice slowing down when you eat, right? Just practice slowing down when you eat. Practice slowing down when you have the urge to eat. Notice if you're eating because you're hungry. Notice if there's an emotional trigger behind it, because awareness and attention are huge for change. Okay, awareness and attention are the impetus, the impedi. I think it's impedi for change. Okay, so I know this might not be easy, right? I know this might not be the easiest thing. And the funny thing about this is, like, you could be listening to this and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. But the brain is so smart. It doesn't want to change. That's why repetition is so key. It's why the intention to want to do this is so important, because it's not about doing it perfectly, because the brain is going to boomerang you away from wanting to do this. So this is going to be like something that you just have to practice, fail at, and then be willing to go back to the tape, so to speak, and see what happened and try again, right? And when you start doing that, you'll realize that it's about the process. It's about the process of progress. And it's about breaking down the stories that we've been carrying around for years about food, about scarcity, about our bodies, about our belonging and deservingness for love. The most incredible thing is that when you do that, you start to pull that lever on your inner power. And when you start to pull the lever on the inner power, that is when the obsession over food starts to stop. That's when the weight starts to naturally come off without having to feel obsessed or like you have to follow something particularly ad nauseum. You realize how much more room and how much more space there is in life. And you don't have to be so hyper-focused on this in order to get the result you want. Actually, the more you're willing to let go of the hyper-focus, the more that the result you want is going to come. The more you're going to find a peace that you never thought was possible. And like I said, the weight really just, it comes off. And you realize that, like, this isn't as hard as you thought, right? You don't have to worry about food and eating as much as you thought. So thank you so much for listening to today's new episode. And don't forget that I'm here weekly sharing new episodes about how to heal from emotional eating, how to lose weight with sustainable strategies, lasting change. And this isn't just a conversation about food, and it's not even a conversation about weight, to be honest, that we're having weekly here. It's really about a feeling of becoming yourself, maybe for the very first time. And if you're listening on Spotify, on Apple, please please rate, review. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, share with anybody who can benefit from this empowering knowledge. And please go to my website. I have a lot of free resources on there, blogs, articles, this and that. I'm very excited that in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be sharing a brand new coaching offer, super, super, super affordable. I'm so excited to finally be offering this. It's going to change the game. So if you're interested, you can go to my website and you can get on the wait list for that. You can also find the link on Instagram and on YouTube. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.